This book is Lyle, Lyle, Crocodile by Bernard Haber. This is the house. The house on East 88th Street. Mr. and Mrs. Prim and their son Joshua live in the house on East 88th Street. And so does Lyle. Listen. Swoosh, swash. Splash, swoosh. That's Lyle. Oh, there he is. Lyle the crocodile. Lyle was very happy living with the Prim family. He was especially happy when he was being useful, like helping Joshua brush up on his schoolwork. Okay, Lyle. 9 plus 6. Do you know what 9 plus 6 is? But if Lyle was happy, he was making someone else unhappy. Perfectly miserable, in fact. That someone else was Loretta, Mr. Grump's cat. Mr. Grump just lived 2 houses away from the Prims, and whenever his cat got caught even the slightest glimpse of Lyle, she would fling herself into a nervous fit. Lyle wanted desperately to win Loretta over. He tried flashing his sweetest, most toothsome smile at her to show how really friendly he was. Oh, but that only frightened her and this distrusted animal even more. Oh, there she is. In the end, Mr. Grumps, who was even more irritable than his cat, would burst from his house shaking an angry fist at Lyle. "Something will have to be done about that crocodile," he shouted as Lyle fled to the safety of his own house. To take his mind off his troubles with Loretta and Mr. Grumps, Lyle filled his days playing with Joshua and his friends. He loved it. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ready or not, here I come. He could skip, double dodge 100 times without making mistakes. It came at no particular surprise that Lyle could jump high, but Loretta, who was just out for an airing, was surprised. Actually, she was terrified. Oh my, poor Loretta. She was so scared that Loretta jumped onto a tree. She was so shaken, she fled to the nearest tree, and no amount of coaxing would bring her down. Not until Mr. Grumps arrived to rescue and comfort her, which she considered coming down. "Something will have to be done about that crocodile," stormed Mr. Grumps. Now Mr. Grumps was really furious. Now he knew he would be snappy and irritable and impossible to live with when he returned to his job in a big department store the following day. So for the next few days, Mrs. Prim thought it'd be best to keep Lyle close at her side. Together, they fussed about the kitchen, preparing good things for the family to eat. And when the weather permitted, they took lunch at the park. Oh, it looks like they're making cookies. Yummy, yummy. Oh, there they are. See them way down here? A picnic at the park. That sounds fabulous. Oh, And Lyle's favorite was always one for sharing. What is he doing? Oh, wait, it looks like he's feeding the birds. Are those bird seeds? Wow. They even took a trip downtown. There was much to see in the big city and much to do. Can you find Lyle? Oh, wait. There he is in the taxi. Oh my, he looks silly. They love Mrs. Prim especially. She could spend hours just browsing around in antique shops. She loved to shop. And Lyle could spend hours watching building constructions. Ooh, look at those big cranes. Oh, this must be even more fun because they both love to ice skate. Wow, look at all the people up here looking at them ice skate. That's the Rockefeller Center, you know, because of that statue there. It's in New York City. Wow. One day, Mrs. Prim and Lyle went shopping in a big department store. Unfortunately for everyone, it turned out to be the same store in which Mr. Grumps held a very important position. But that's okay. They just went up the escalator. There they are, going up the escalator. And when they got to the top, they didn't hear from Mr. Grumps, but it was okay. Oh, wait. Who's that? It was his voice that suddenly broke in over the loudspeaker to announce a sale in the pajama party. There's a sale in the pajama party, in the pajama department. Come everyone, 50% off. All pajamas. Oh, they're very lovely. Come to the pajama departments, 50% off. Only today. Come up to the pajama department. You'll get a wonderful discount. Meanwhile, Mrs. Prim was asking the lady, "Oh my, may I look at the different shirts? Oh, that's a lovely green one. And oh my, look at that red one with stripes. Lyle, what do you think of these blouses? Oh, I could buy this one that has the cute little red around the neck." But Lyle was listening to the announcement and, oh no, there goes everybody. And so does Lyle. Immediately, it was as if everybody in the store was in desperate need of PJs. Separated from Mrs. Prim, Lyle was swept in the crowd. And as they neared the pajama department, Lyle thought he heard a familiar voice. "Lyle? Lyle?" The voice called out. Oh, Lyle recognized the voice right away. And the face as well. For that voice and that face belonged but not only to Hector P. Valenti, star of stage and screen. But what was Signor Valenti up to now? Well, for the moment, it seemed he was busy selling pajamas. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome, welcome. Look at all these pajamas. Red with stripes, yellow with black, white, green. Oh, I have some polka dots. And ladies, these lovely pink pajamas with white polka dots. And the swirly reds and the greens and the yellow. Oh, come all." "Lyle, my dear Lyle, friend, how are you?" Lyle remembered, unhappily, his days of traveling and performing with Signor Valenti. But in spite of everything, the two were delighted to see each other once more. Lyle, how have you been?" Meanwhile, excuse me. In another part of the store, Mrs. Prim searched frantically for Lyle. Excuse me, she said to the lady at the information booth. "Have you seen a crocodile going past? He was wearing a red scarf, you know." "No, ma'am. No," answered the lady. "I have no information about a crocodile wearing a red scarf." "Oh my, I wonder where Lyle is." And she went to the hardware, sales, sportings, everywhere. Excuse me. Have you by any chance come across a crocodile? His name is Lyle." No, ma'am. I haven't come across no crocodile named Lyle today." "Oh my goodness, what am I going to do?" Mrs. Prim grew more and more upset. Excuse me, she said to the man wearing a white carnation. "I have lost my crocodile, and I do not know what to do." Whatever the man answered, Mrs. Prim never heard it, because suddenly she heard a chorus and of other voices shouting, "More! More! More!" More? Wonder what that is. What do you think that is, boys and girls? Oh my goodness. No, he didn't. Those voices belonged to the huge crowd of shoppers surrounding Mr. Hector V. Valenti and Lyle. Because they had an audience, and because Signor Valenti could not resist showing off, he had persuaded Lyle to join him in a free performance of their old stage act. Rum, dum, 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 da, 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 rum, dum, dum, dum. More! More! The surprised but delighted shoppers called out, forgetting all about wanting or even needing pajamas. Suddenly, Mrs. Prim caught up just in time to hear another voice charged with fury and shouted, "What's going on here?" Oh my God, it was Mr. Grumps. And when Mr. Grumps saw what was really going on, his face turned red. "Whoa! Madame," he gasped, "we do not permit crocodiles in this store, you know. Remove him at once. And you, sir, you, Mr. Valenti," as he said, pointing a dagger finger like, "you, sir, you are dismissed. Out, out, out of my store. You and you and you." Oh my, something will have to be done about that crocodile, were the words that Mr. Grumps had said, still raging and saying, "Oh." Mrs. Prim and Signor Valenti went outside, and they said goodbye to Signor Valenti outside the door. Of course, Mrs. Prim was worried. "Oh, let's go, Lyle." But that afternoon, Mr. Grumps made a threat that he would keep, and the next day he appeared at the Prim's door with papers authorizing Lyle to be committed to the city zoo. "Oh my! The zoo?" said Mrs. Prim, and she exclaimed miserably, "Whatever would Lyle be doing in a zoo?" "He'll be doing whatever a normal crocodile is supposed to be doing," snapped Mr. Grumps, who wasn't being very nice at all about it. Mr. Prim, Mrs. Prim, and even Joshua examined the papers, and they did appear to be in order. "There's Lyle back there in the car." There was nothing they could do, at least for the moment, to prevent Mr. Grumps from putting Lyle in the zoo. And that first night, was very difficult indeed. Look, he's crying. He misses his family. Not wanting to seem unsociable, but he decided, well, I guess I'll sleep with the other crocodiles. So Hoover cozy piled together. Just when he thought he had gotten himself comfortable on top, oh no, he awakened to find himself crushed to the very bottom of the pile of crocodiles. Lyle's restlessness so annoyed the other crocodiles that they just got up and stomped off in a huff. You know, Lyle was happier during the day. When visitors came, he amused every one of them with his unusual tricks. And before long, he was the biggest attraction at the zoo. And all the kids and all the adults, everybody would come to see Lyle. He was funny, you know. He could dance. Even Joshua and Mrs. Prim visit him regularly. Mrs. Prim did her best to smile and appeared cheerful, but just couldn't hide her concern. "Are you feeling okay, dear?" she would ask him. "Are you getting enough rest? Are you making friends with the other crocodiles? Lyle, do the lions keep you awake at night? Oh my, is that floor too damp? Do the flies pester you?" Lyle shook his head yes or no, depending on the question. He tried putting on a brave face in front of Mrs. Prim. He knew very well he was unhappy, and he fought back the tears, but he told her that everything was okay. One night, a new zookeeper came, and he had his keys, and he opened the cage. Surprise, surprise! Wait a minute! The new keeper turned out to be Hector P. Valenti. Do you see the mustache? Oh my! Shh! Whispered Signor Valenti. "I have come to rescue you." And Signor Valenti unlocked the door of the cage, and an astonished Lyle was set free. Whoa! They got in the vehicle. Signor Valenti said, "You can't go home again. When they put you in the zoo, they're planning on sending you to Australia. Maybe we could put our old act together. We can actually do fly to Australia. They'll love us in Australia." The very thought of never seeing the house on East 88th Street again was grim indeed, and too much for him to endure. But he thought about it. He said, well, might not be a bad idea. But suddenly, as they were driving down the road, Signor Valenti read his thought and decided that Lyle should visit his family on East 88th Street for one more time. As they were approaching the now sleepy street, where suddenly, wait a minute, what is that? Lyle got out of the car real fast. Of course, Mr. Grump stopped the car. It was smoke. Smoke was coming out of Mr. Grump's house. Signor Valenti ran to signal the alarm, and Lyle broke into the house and rescued the still sleepy occupants. Those occupants were actually Mr. Grumps and Loretta. A gasping, frightening Mr. Grumps and his cat were led to safety. Oh my, look at this. Now the Prims and the entire neighborhood were awake and witnessed Lyle's heroism. Mr. Grumps couldn't thank him enough. "Ladies and gentlemen," said Mr. Grumps to the crowd and the onlookers, "Lyle is the bravest, the kindness, the most wonderful, the fabulous, the most awesomeness, oh my, I would consider it a privilege, a pleasure to have him as our neighbor once more. Hooray! 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 Shouted the prince and shouted the crowd. So Lyle moved back on East 88th Street that very night, you know. And several days later, a farewell party was given by the prince for Signor Valenti, who was leaving to seek fortune and adventure in Australia. Remember, said Mr. Grumps, speaking to Signor Valenti, should you change your mind without leaving, a job in my store will always be yours just for asking. You know we need people like you, with your kind talent and ability. A man who makes everybody smile. Mr. Valenti, bon voyage. You will be missed. Oh, you're welcome to come back. Even Loretta was happy that Lyle was going to stay. The end.